Welcome back
to another episode of InHaus podcast.
Oh, I thought we were going to do a back and forth thing.
Oh, we should have.
No, we can do it next
That would
time.
have been sick. What is up? I got Reise. Vaughn. I almost called you Reise.
You can call me Reise.
He called you that before you came on. And I was like, is that his actual
It's my full name. I go by Reise for short.
Really?
No.
We should tell people that. Whenever they meet you for the first time.
I would believe that.
That'd be great.
Cool.
But Reise, I want to kind of give you the floor for a second. Kind of just tell us who you are, how you know me, us. And
How do you know John?
what are you doing? Who are you?
Who am I? Great question. So I grew up in the Sycamore area and didn't think I'd be back here right now, but here I am.
Classic.
And the way that worked is I grew up in a non-Christian home till I was about 8 years old, and then my mom got saved, and then my dad also came to know the Lord.
Awesome.
And so I grew up with kind of a mixture of influences, I guess. And a huge deal for me was going to youth group. In fact, really the reason why I'm following Jesus is because people at youth group invested in me and poured into my life. And amazingly, by God's providence and very unexpectedly, my youth pastor is Gary Lyle, and he is the associate pastor of our church, and I am on staff with him still. And so a guy that I met in 7th grade, I still get to serve with now. So that's really cool. And not very common, I would think, that the person who discipled you as a 7th grader through high school, now I'm 29 and I get to work with him and be on staff with him. So that's really cool.
That's awesome.
But the way there being now was a very long, twisty, convoluted route. And so started hanging out with a pretty bad crowd in high school years, and really drew my focus away from the Lord, and then started dating my girlfriend right before my senior year of high school. I met her when I was 16 years old, and since my focus was already away from the Lord, my focus was just ready to jump to the next idol, which was her. Became her. And so she was my idol. She was way more important than my relationship with Jesus was.
Yeah.
And really drew me away. It's not her fault, it's my fault.
Sure.
And so went to school to be a firefighter, and God had to do something to really get a hold of my heart, and it had to be something drastic. And so that was the first ACL tear. So I was a freshman in college, and I was doing parkour or free running. If you guys know what that is.
I do know about this.
Yes.
Parkour.
Parkour. Yes.
I never got into it, but I watched a lot of videos when I was in high school age.
Yeah.
And I always thought that it was going to be something I got into. But then it just...
Most people know what it is from that Office episode.
That's the only reason that a lot of people know what it is.
I think so.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, so it's really cool.
It is really cool.
Till you tear your ACL.
Yeah.
And
were you doing something cool while you tore your ACL?
I guess it depends who you ask.
Okay.
I thought it was
okay. That's weird.
If you asked a professional parkourer, they probably wouldn't say so.
That's fine. Yeah, sure.
It was at NIU, you might know.
Okay.
It was at the music building. There's a staircase that comes down, and there's 2 concrete walls on either side of it.
I know
And
exactly
so
where you're talking.
We sprinted across those walls, and there's a sidewalk that runs perpendicular to them, so we tried to jump across this sidewalk to get to the grass on the other side. We reached the grass. Landed bad, tore my ACL, MCL.
Did you know immediately?
I knew something terrible had happened. I didn't know what in the world it was.
Was this the worst pain you've ever had in your life?
Yes,
You heard it here first, folks.
it was. It was terrible.
Wow.
It didn't feel good at all. And my upper leg was moving independently of my lower leg.
Oh, dude.
And as
Stop.
I walked, and so I was like, this isn't supposed to be.
You walked on it?
Well, I tried. Didn't really get very far.
Didn't get very far. Man.
So
So that happened.
that happened. And so I got surgery, healed up, and I was given the all clear by the doctors to continue with my going to school to be a firefighter paramedic, and also to start working out again, playing basketball again. And then in the FBC Church Basketball League, FBC Sycamore,
Shout out.
Nate Miller,
Nate Miller.
good
Love that
guy. He should be on this podcast.
Oh, dude.
That
trust
would be
me.
a sick
He
guest.
will be. He will be.
Okay, good. I'll put a bug in his ear when I see him.
Yes.
Nate Miller, you heard it here first.
Heard it here first. So, so chased the guy down, tried to block his layup, landed, and did the same exact injury
To the same leg?
to the same leg, only worse. This time I also put a big giant dent in the bottom of my femur,
Ooh.
which they had to pop out with a 10mm bone screw. And that was actually their biggest screw. If that didn't work, I'd be screwed. No pun intended. Yeah.
Oh, that's
And-
good.
And it was during the recovery of that injury that I started thinking, okay, is God trying to close this door to this direction that I was moving?
Yeah.
And it was during that recovery that I started meeting multiple times a week with these two really close friends
Mhm.
who were also wanting to grow in their relationship with Jesus and learn to follow him better.
Mhm.
And so we were like, hey, each of us are in a really strange place in life. One of them had just moved back from another state. One of them had just quit his job and school. I had just gotten injured and I wasn't in school or working because I was laid up on a couch.
Right.
And we started meeting 4 times a week for
Yeah.
2 to 3 hours a time, and just really getting in each other's business and
Yeah.
being real
Mhm.
and being honest. And so we had a meeting dedicated to just theological talk. We had a meeting dedicated to praying together. We had a meeting dedicated to calling each other to account for our actions. And we just became really close.
What a sweet time. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
it was
super
awesome. And it was through that I saw some of the most profound spiritual growth I've ever seen in my life. And
Yeah.
so that was a huge turning point for me. And that relationship I was in with that girlfriend, I started to realize that I needed to step up and be the man God was calling me to be, and start to lead her into purity and lead her into loving Jesus more than she loves me.
Yeah.
That's
the biggest.
it's a funny thing about relationships, about romance. We have all these romantic notions about, oh, you're just my world. I just love you more than anything.
You're my rock.
You're
I hate
you're
that.
my rock.
It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's idolatry.
yeah.
That's what it is, and it's a dead end, and you're gonna crash and burn. And
Yeah,
so we had to really be like, okay, do we love Jesus more than we love each other? And we had to work our way to get there.
Right.
It's a really
If
good
not-
question to ask.
How can we get there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And God is so good. We spun a 180, and she's my wife. And
Let's
we've been
go.
married for 5
Tegan Vaughn.
Tegan Vaughn.
What a person.
She's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm super blessed. So
How long have y'all been married?
we have been married about 4.5 years, a little over. It's going to be
Nice.
5 years in January.
It's awesome.
Sweet. Congrats.
That's sweet.
Yeah, thank you. So that's kind of a big picture of the process I went through. Another little important piece about how I came to be here
Yeah.
in Sycamore, DeKalb area is during that recovery time from that second ACL tear, I started praying about does the Lord want me to go into ministry?
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of friends and pastors were like, hey, we think that you should do that. That
Yeah.
sounds like something you should do. You have a heart for it. You have this gifting for it. And so I went to Moody in Chicago
Sweet.
and got a degree in evangelism and discipleship, which is in the like intercultural studies department, like the world missions
Yeah.
department. And I thought that the Lord would take me to like another country, and maybe church planting or some kind of mission work. And sort of through getting married and then starting to live in Sycamore, I worked for a farmer too in Sycamore, and so we ended up renting a house from him and living here. We were like, dang, we need like a place to go to church. And at that time, Gary Lyle had already come to Bethany Road. It used to be Harvest DeKalb. So he was like, you should come to our church. And so we were like, yeah, sure. So we did and plugged in. And then they ended up needing some help with youth leadership. And so I was like, yeah, I'll serve as a volunteer youth leader.
You had no idea where this was going.
I had no idea.
Uh-huh.
I had no idea. I just started serving as a volunteer.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember meeting you.
I
and
was
I remember
a young lad.
Luke, who lived in that house on the other side of that.
My
camera.
old youth leader
That
lived
house?
next door.
Yeah.
Behind this
crazy.
camera. He lived right there.
Yeah.
I had no idea until
And my first
You told
time
me.
coming to a youth event or meeting any students
was it a Super Bowl.
was at a Super Bowl party in that
In
basement.
that basement.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go over there now.
Right.
I know.
So we've sort of come full circle. We're talking about this 30 feet away from there.
We'll just keep looking at the camera.
And then just the viewers have no idea what we're seeing.
What are we doing?
Maybe we'll spin
But,
it at the end of the episode. No.
So how did that kind of spiral into I'm just a youth leader, but now there's
Yeah.
more of the story.
Yeah, so God called Luke to Rockford and for a job and taking care of a family member too. And then so need opened up, and myself and another youth leader did like a dual internship. And then God called that other youth leader
To get married?
And to move away and become a teacher. And then my hours increased and I came on staff.
And it was you.
And that was me.
Cool.
Yeah, dude.
And I never thought to myself,
This is where you'd be.
this is where I would be. But it's exactly where God wants me to be.
It's
And,
been-
I am actually doing intercultural mission work because
yeah.
Gen Z is another culture.
Yeah.
And dude, totally. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I actually have the privilege of
Yes.
serving underneath you
Yeah.
as a
volunteer youth leader.
volunteer youth leader.
Yeah, man.
And we've been doing that for how many years now? What day is it?
Well,
2020?
you started as a
What year is
volunteer
it?
youth leader pretty much right when you graduated high school.
In
which was
2017.
17.
So it's been, wow, 3 years,
3 years ago.
bro.
That's
It's
awesome.
It's been, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen the culture, the whatever you want to call it, of the ministry, just totally like over the last. Because I got involved with the student ministry when I was in 7th grade, I
You're
think.
just a little guy.
Yeah, it was like a trip to Magic Waters, and I was like, dude, let's go. I got to meet Parker Sedekase, which was
Shout
huge.
out.
Yeah, he's coming on too,
Hey.
and Eric Horn.
Yes,
and,
I love that guy.
So I got to meet all these guys, and I just remember thinking, wow, these are the coolest dudes in the world.
Yeah.
Like these are these guys like care about me and want to know me. And then I like kind of just evolutionized or whatever you want to call it into like evolved into I'm gonna graduate, but I don't really want to leave. And so is there a way that I can stay around? And Reise was like, hey, like you kind of want to just be a leader? And I was like, yeah. And that was 3 years ago, and I haven't left. So I've just been kind of in the ministry for years. And like,
It's cool.
yeah.
So I've got a question for
Yeah.
you. What are some of the biggest evolutions of a culture
Yeah.
that you said our culture has changed quite a bit in time? What have you noticed?
I think I've just seen like, because how many years has it even been since I started going? 7th grade would have been 2014, 13. No, 12. Something around that time to 2020. And I think I've just seen like a number of different students come and go. I've seen like different leaders. I was under Adrian for my first few years.
Yeah.
It was only like a year that I was underneath Adrian. And then I was underneath Luke. And then there was like
I was
this.
playing basketball with Adrian when I tore my ACL the second time. And Eric Horn
I miss those guys.
connections.
And then I was underneath like the whole like Jake and Reese era, and it's like I just see like, I wouldn't even say there's been many big changes, but you just see how each person has their different leadership style, and then you see like different kids come and go, and you get to hear about their life and see like where the Lord is leading them. Like there's people that I haven't heard from in years that were there when I was first there. And it's like, so to where we are now, like we have leaders that were not even involved when like originally there. And it's just cool to see how the Lord like sustains and still uses his ministry, even because I've seen that ministry really thrive, and then I've seen that ministry like be at a lower point. And it's like the Lord still uses it, you know, throughout however many years it's been. And all of that is because of like faithful leaders who show up each week and want to pour into their students. And I feel like from your story, even before all of that, where you would like meet up with these guys and you would like hang out with them and you'd be poured into, like it started then and like it just continued. And I feel like the Lord did a lot in that. So it's like, that's kind of where, for me, it's like, I want to have a similar impact vibe thing, you know? So it's like, yeah, I just think it's weird to think about. Like, as I'm saying, I'm like, wow, I've actually been in this ministry for so long.
It's cool. And it's like the Great Commission coming to pass. Like the guys who discipled you got discipled by someone else. And then the guys who discipled them got discipled by someone else. Not infinitely, all the way back to the followers of Jesus Christ,
for sure,
his disciples in the Gospels. We can read about it, and in Acts, and that's like cool to think about, like who will be a disciple in 100 years or 200 years because of the life we pour into people right now.
Totally, and I think
how important is that in youth ministry specifically? You know. Like for you guys who have like served there, you know what I mean, for a while or, you know, longer than John. You guys can both speak to it. Like, what do you see like impact wise of like pouring in discipleship to an adult versus like someone who's in like the youth program? Like, what are some of the differences there?
It's a good question. I think that a lot of teenagers are still asking some very fundamental questions about like who they're going to be, who are they going to talk like, who are they going to act like, who are they going to think like, and I mean, to some extent, obviously, everybody is always picking up on influence around them. Like even as adults, we are being influenced by each other right now, and everyone you encounter is. But I think adults sort of, they're like, I know who. Got my way of talking, thinking, doing, and I think a teenager, especially the younger they get, is like still not really landed on how am I going to live my life, how am I going to think like, and they're just, we model naturally. Human beings just model naturally. We want to observe the way other people do things and then do things like that. And so, just like our conversation the other day. The vital importance of inviting a young person to just watch how you live your life and follow Jesus and then just do what you do is huge. And, you know, there's that's kind of a cliche saying, but the do as I say, not as I do kind of thing doesn't work.
Right.
Maybe it works from a position of extreme authority and only when that authority is being really aggressive and telling you like, hey, act like this or I'm going to hurt you somehow. Or there's punishment, but real, actual, true influence like comes from modeling.
For sure.
Not from telling someone to act a certain way.
So, it's not like every single thing that you do, like I have to speak into and you have to do it this way and this thing. It's like, that's not accurate.
Yeah, I remember one time as a volunteer youth leader under Gary, kind of even before I went to Moody, when my life was first starting to turn around and I was following Jesus for real. he invited me to go to Walmart to get food and supplies for like some youth event.
Uh-huh.
And I was like,
yeah.
I was like ready to learn like deep, intense. Like,
Right.
I was like, yeah, what are we gonna learn here? And it was just like, I learned how to buy stuff at Walmart.
We're just going to Walmart. Yeah.
We're just going to Walmart
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
one of the things that a youth pastor has to do
For sure.
is buy stuff for youth events. And so it's like just inviting into life, you know?
Absolutely.
And then of course through that you get to see the teenager gets to see the integrity and the authenticity
Absolutely.
Yes.
of a real follower of Christ. Because if you're an authentic follower of Christ, it's gonna show in every area of your
Yeah,
life, not
for sure.
just when you're at church.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's easier to like say that and associate that and say like, oh, this does look like how your life looks like all the time. You know what I mean? Rather than, oh, I see you a couple hours a week. You know what I mean? And you always look the same way, but the other, 100 something hours, I don't know what your life looks like. You know?
Yeah, it's so huge
Yeah.
to show them that you're real. And
Absolutely.
I think I've heard a clip, and I think it's true. Teenagers have like a very accurate authenticity meter.
Uh-huh.
Like if you're faking it,
Don't know.
they'll know.
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, I think
Yes.
a lot of people will.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
but if there's a youth leader or a youth pastor who's just showing up and going through the motions,
Yeah.
those kids will be able to see it right
Yeah.
away.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be really detrimental.
Yeah.
That authentic love for students in Jesus,
Mhm.
that's what makes youth ministry work.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, huge.
Super huge.
I
Cool.
think. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say like that really ties into. I mean, I feel like all the things we've talked about are kind of like around the discipleship idea. You know what I mean? And that even ties into what you were talking about with Andy a couple episodes ago,
Yeah.
because he was like talking about the way that you live outside of being a worship leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's more what it's about than about like getting up there and like playing a song.
Right, that was awesome.
He
I listened to that too.
he said something like, I don't want, at the end of my life, like I don't want people to be talking about like how in tune my voice was or
Mhm.
how well I could play
Mm-hmm.
X amount of chords.
Right.
Like he simply said, I want people to be talking about my life.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to be talking about my character.
Mhm.
I edited this episode so I could like quote it all, but like he's like I like he wants them to be talking about how well he just lived.
Mm-hmm.
Both, and I feel like ministry, whether it's worship ministry, youth ministry, like those hours on a Sunday night or those hours that you spend on a stage
Mm-hmm.
are just a small fraction of the ministry, right? Like worship ministry isn't just like playing
Right.
music on a Sunday morning, and youth ministry isn't just having youth group on a Sunday night. It's literally about like, how are we modeling our lives for the people that the Lord has called us to shepherd,
For sure.
you know? And it's like, if I'm at a coffee shop on a Tuesday afternoon,
Mhm.
my life should look the exact same as it does on a Sunday morning
Mhm.
when I'm talking to my pastor,
Absolutely.
you know? And I'm sure you could speak into that too, and how that just like, and I think like when you are serving in ministry and like when you're a Christ follower, let alone serving in ministry,
Mhm.
like there's just that big like target on your back that the enemy just wants to be like, hey, like I'm going to use things in your life to just be like, get at you.
For
And
sure.
I think that's like, we always have to be on guard against that and be like, man, I want my life to just like scream Jesus, you know?
Mhm.
And it shouldn't just be like, well, yeah, I play guitar and I sing.
Right.
And I think Andy said something cool. He's like, unless you think worship ministry is just songs, then yeah, that's cool. But like, it's so much more than that. Like, there's a lot of things that separate. And this could be said for youth ministry. It's crazy how they all like correlate.
For
But
sure.
it's like, there's a difference between a worship leader and a song leader,
Mhm.
right? Like a worship leader lives his life to honor the Lord
Mhm.
in every area. A song leader just gets up on stage. Like anyone can get on stage and sing songs.
And do the song. Yeah.
Like I say this all the time. Like anyone, even if you sing terribly,
Hmm.
you could get up there and sing these songs that we sing 1,000 times.
Right.
Anyone can do that. And then the same thing could be said. Like really anybody could go in there and go through the motions of leading a youth group. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what you were just saying. Like, kids will be able to spot that out a mile away if you're just going in there and you're just going through the motions. But when your life reflects Jesus in all that you do throughout the week, like, you're gonna go in there and you're gonna lead with a different energy, or you're gonna lead your church with a different energy because you're actually truly following the Lord. And that's what like real ministry looks like, you know? So that's my soapbox, but I don't know if you guys wanted to add to that.
Amen.
Yeah,
For sure.
you know?
For sure. You guys both touched on something earlier about like the kind of like fluidness of like leadership change, you know what I mean, in youth ministry. What in your lives or in, you know, your lives as in youth ministry as a kid or in your lives recently as helping serve alongside a youth ministry team, how, if at all, has the change of leadership or change of like people coming and going impacted like the way ministry is done or impacted kind of like the vibe of the ministry? Because I know I had like a couple leaders earlier on in life, right, that were there, right, and like a solid mentor and a solid discipler in my life, right, and then something happened in like the adult church that I, unbeknownst to me, you know, and then a couple of them like stepped down and left the church, right, so that's like, and that's kind of like not a hole, right, but it's kind of like a big deal when you're a kid. You're like, oh man, like they're gone, what happened, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think that affects kids, and how have you seen it played out? You know, obviously keeping names. Exactly.
It's good
Right. Yeah. But
Reese?
I think it can be sort of jarring,
mhm.
you know, kind of like I just heard in your story, kind of implicit in that was like, whoa, that was tough
Right,
when those
yeah.
people stepped out.
Yeah.
And I think that the Lord takes you to different places in different seasons of your life. There's a way to leave well, and there's a way to leave poorly.
Yeah.
And the way to leave well is to make a bridge to that next leader who's going to
Absolutely.
be there. You know,
Absolutely.
it's not wrong that God calls you geographically somewhere else.
Yeah,
It happens all the time.
Happens all the time. Now, obviously, there's a caveat. If you're like in sin, like unrepentant sin, and you lose your ministry because of that, that's one thing.
For sure.
But just because you get a job somewhere else, or you were only in a certain place or a certain season, that's not
Mhm.
wrong. But you shouldn't just leave without any handoff whatsoever.
For sure.
I think the handoff can actually be one of the most amazing things, because you can start to coach another leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you know that date is coming up, that you're going to leave.
Yeah.
If you can coach another leader into, hey, like I'm going to be exiting in 3 months, but like I want you to take my spot.
Yeah.
And so then that leader starts co-leading with that other leader.
For sure.
And those kids start to see, this person also cares for me. This
Mhm.
person is also in love with Jesus. This
Yeah.
person is also investing in my life.
Mhm.
And it will just ease that transition
Mhm.
so much better. Like,
And they can see those people on the same team too.
That's
You know what I mean? Like just visually, and yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah. And then also, I think it's important to tell students that personality of different leaders
Mm-hmm.
is gonna be different. Like,
Mhm.
everyone has a different personality, everyone has a different leadership style,
Yeah.
and that's not wrong. I think a lot of times, like if there's a youth leader or a youth pastor or whatever who has a certain leadership style, say they're very like alpha male leader, they're loud, they're like forging ahead, they're manly. Like if I had to follow up someone like that, that's just not what I'm like. I'm
Right.
quiet. Like I'm not very loud.
Yeah.
In fact, when I see or listen to myself like teaching or
Mhm.
preaching, there will be times that I thought I was like shouting,
Right.
and then I watch it later,
Right.
and I'm like barely risen above my basic level. Like,
You go from
It's so true.
you
It's
go
so
from like
true.
here to here.
I think I'm going from a 1 to a 10. I'm going to a 1.5.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's like to explain to students
Yeah.
if there's another leader coming in and they're like drastically different,
For
to
sure.
be like, hey, just because they're different than me doesn't mean that they're worse or better.
Right.
There's a different leadership style. And
That's
and they're
good.
going to have different giftings. They're going to have different tendencies, and
Mhm.
as long as they're authentically following Jesus and making disciples and pouring into lives, like they're going to be doing the right thing for who they are. Like they're going to be different, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
In fact, they might even do some things better. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, yeah, everyone's just got different strengths and abilities and personalities, and you know, we as adults might be able to be like, oh yeah, of course, like one pastor will be different than another pastor.
Right.
But a teenager,
It's
they might
totally
not have
different.
that discernment yet. They
Yeah.
might not have grown into that yet. And so it's like very, I think, important to coach them through a transition like that in those two ways. That's just my gut reaction.
Yeah, and I'd even say like for me, I feel like I was there for that like big transition because there was a season I think when like almost all our leaders left, or it was like because there was a ton of people and then they were all like called to different areas.
Mhm.
And for me as a kid, I was like, I remember you came in and I was like, he does things like it was never like, oh my gosh, I don't like this guy. I'm gonna leave the ministry now. No, it was never that. Like it was just like I immediately saw like oh, he does things differently.
Mhm.
But I never once thought to myself like it's just wrong.
Right.
This just doesn't work. Like
Right.
you know, but I think like and of course I was older when you came in. I think I was like 17 or 18. Like that was near the time that I was graduating. 16 maybe. I don't know. But I was old enough to know like I think I started to see that, and I think this season definitely showed me that it's like okay when different people come in and like you don't immediately, because I think when I was younger a lot of times it was like oh someone else is here like I'm just not gonna really pay attention or I'm just not gonna care because they're not like oh Reise isn't Adrian, you know like like I'm not gonna listen to him or Reise isn't Luke.
And
Like,
that
I don't care.
happens a
You know,
lot.
and yeah, it's like it's crazy because I had friends in the youth group who are like, yeah, I don't really feel like going.
Yeah.
Because like
Because it's not my.
it's not
that
who
guy
I'm used
that I
to.
loved.
It's not who I'm comfortable with.
It happens a lot in like youth ministry
Yeah.
transitions.
Yeah,
A bunch of kids will drop off because their leader that they have a great relationship with left.
just left.
And it might be that leader did everything right. They might have left really well. They might have handed it off perfectly.
It's
but
just
the
personality.
kids just are like, but I really love that person and I don't want to be here if they're not here.
Yeah,
And it's really can be really hard.
That's tough.
and like I
Tough
think
for
that
leader and student.
oh yeah,
Very.
totally. Because like I know for me, like I don't ever want, and this isn't me saying I'm leaving soon. Don't worry. Like I don't ever want it
Sounds
to
like
be.
tendering his resignation.
So, Reese, we actually
Yeah.
brought you on because I got something to say. No, but I don't want it ever to be like, oh, John's not here. Like, so I'm not going to show up. You know, like that's the last thing that I want. And like, I remember like talking to like a certain like students who were like, yeah, like you're a really important leader to me.
Mhm.
And like, that's really like, that's when you hear that, you're like, wow. Like I had no idea that like this is what this meant to you, you know? But like when I wouldn't show up, they were like, yeah, we really want to let go. And in my head, I'm like, I shouldn't be the reason that, you know? And it's like, I don't want that to be the thing, you know? Like I want you to be there because the Lord is
Yeah.
calling you there and you want. And so for me, that was kind of a battle that I was fighting through when this whole transition was going on back in whatever year it was. I obviously don't know my years.
Mhm.
It's like,
I think we've learned that.
I know things are different, but I want to continue to see what happens here. And if it totally crashes and burns, then we'll go from there. But like, I feel called, whether it was because I feel like everybody battles the whole like, oh, it's Sunday night, so like this is what I'm gonna do. Like I'm talking like students specifically.
Mhm.
I know
this is a chill night.
Yeah, like I just-
stay home.
I battled it. I was like, it's Sunday night. Like, I could chill or I could go to youth group, like, and I like, for me, it was like, I'm going to youth group, whether it's the same leaders or not,
That's
because
cool.
I want to see.
Yeah. Can I drop a C.S. Lewis quote in here?
Oh, dude.
For sure.
Okay. Christianity, if true, is of infinite importance.
Mm-hmm.
If false, is of zero importance.
I've heard that one before.
The only thing it cannot be is moderately important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yet so many
Come on.
so many people who call themselves Christians live as though it's moderately important. And I think that as a leader and an influencer of other lives, what we're modeling is this is of infinite importance. I am not of infinite importance.
Right.
Jesus is of infinite importance, and it should be the top thing in your life. And that holds true even if I leave.
Yes. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I want, like, I love Andy Rozier's, hey man, tour guide example of, like, it's, he said it about worship ministry, but it's the same is true, again, for youth ministry. Like, our job as worship leaders, is what he said, is to be like a tour guide at a museum. Like, our goal is to show people Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and then to get out of the way
Mm-hmm.
and, like, let them take pictures, you know,
Of Jesus.
of Jesus, and like that's the thing. And so our job as youth leaders is not to show up and be like, look how awesome of a youth leader I am.
Mm-hmm.
Look how well I can disciple you, and look how many fancy things I can say
Mm-hmm.
that make you think that I know more than you.
Yeah.
Our job is to just be like, hey, like, we're all called to follow the same Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And we, in our own hearts, view him as infinitely more important than anything else. So we're here not because we want you to see how good we are or how great we are, but we want to point you to Jesus. And hopefully, as you grow into a man or into a woman that the Lord is calling you to be like, that you would see that same truth. And I think, like, that's what all of ministry should really be, is never let's show up and show how fancy we are.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when pride creeps in, you know?
For sure.
It's a little cheesy, but like, the moon doesn't have light of its own to give.
For sure.
It just is the sun bouncing off of it and shining down into a dark night.
For sure.
And it's
I've
like,
never heard that before. I really like that. I mean, I knew it, but like...
those
Wait,
cornerstones-
what? Are you serious?
So it's like just being clear with the people that you influence. Like, I am not the source of this, like, goodness. I'm not the source of this light. I'm just, like, a reflection of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, in my head, I always have this picture of, like, holding up a mirror. And if anyone looks at me, I just want to, like, bounce their view to Jesus. I'm pointing up. He's not up. That's the
Right.
sky.
Right.
He's
He's everywhere.
he's everywhere. But, like, yeah, a mirror that points to Jesus and takes the glory away from ourselves. Because, yeah, he's the one that should get all of it anyway.
For sure.
Titus, what is... So, like, we serve at Bethany Road,
For sure.
and it's all good. You know,
It's all good.
good enough. But what does, like, discipleship looked like for you? What have been in your life just roles? Where have you seen that, like, exemplified well?
Yeah.
Is that a word? Exemplified.
Yeah, that's it.
Very
It's
much
definitely a
a
word.
Let's go.
Good job.
Thanks.
I would say, like, growing up in the church I grew up in, right, Crosspoint Community Church, back in little old Eureka, Illinois. I would say that's where I saw discipleship done the best, right? And kind of like we were talking about earlier, I think who I saw do it the best ended up leaving and kind of like stepping out. And that was right around like the time I was getting into high school age, right? Which is like, it was, well, probably late high school. And it was like the time of like, okay, you've got some stuff going on, you know, we would love you to be around and serve at youth group, right? In whatever capacity you are able. But there wasn't at that point like someone else that was like actively pouring into me, you know. We had a youth group leader, right? And he had some like leaders on staff to like help him out, right? But it was never like, hey, sit down, like talk about what's going on, you know. It was more so like, this is what we're doing with youth group, you know what I mean? So that was like late high school, and then I went to Wisconsin for a little while, and then I came to NIU and I got involved with crew, right? And then Tim Shad, shout out Tim Shad.
We love Tim Shad.
We love Tim
Can
Shad.
we say that it's a shout out?
It's a
Shout out.
Shout out. We should do that more often. We should do shout outs. Tim Shad discipled me my freshman year, right? As I was coming around to crew for a little while and still like getting settled in at my home church, Brightfield, right? And so like that was of a lot of importance because he was like on campus a lot, you know, he was in a lot of guys' lives, right? Not yet married, right? So he was just like single and
He was just chilling.
yeah, he's just chilling, right? What do you do if you're not married? You just chill out, right?
I don't know, Titus.
I don't know what
Disciple
to do.
make with intensity.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what Tim was about,
Aggressive.
right? He was
On the
aggressively,
offensive.
well, not aggressively discipling, but he was doing it intentionally for sure, you know. So that was really special and cool to see. And he would just like, you know, show up, be like, hey, like let's grab coffee, let's like talk through. We went through a couple of books of the Bible that were super helpful.
Yeah.
We went through a couple like crew PowerPoint studies, which were not as helpful, but still, you know, still like good to be able to spend
So
time.
are you telling me that the word of God had more impact on you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, man.
Imagine that.
To be fair, though, it's it's hard. It's hard
Here we go.
when you first meet somebody to gauge where they're at with Christ. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if they say like, "Oh, I'm a super hardcore Christian," you know what I mean?
You don't see the actions in that yet.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like to get to the point where you're sitting down and studying through Romans together, you know what I mean? Sometimes we have to do a couple of the preliminary, you know what I mean? Like, hey,
What is sin?
yeah, what do you think about the gospel? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And try to like gauge it, right?
Who is Jesus?
Can I interrupt your story with a way to
Please.
fail at this?
Please, yeah.
Okay, I talked with someone who was very like much a seeker, very had a lot of questions, very interested, and talked about predestination.
Oh wow.
Oh my goodness.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
It's a bad place to start.
I'm going to tell you right now, don't do that.
God can use anything. I just don't think that it's recommended.
Uh-huh.
I think that it's a bad place to start. Okay, continue.
Yeah.
Do not do that.
Probably not a great place to start. But then like getting into the season of like being open about sin and like studying through the word together and like drawing stuff out in each other's lives. You know what I mean? That was super sweet. And then he was he out sophomore year last year?
Yeah.
He got married. Yeah, and there's support raising. So he wasn't around as much this 2019 school year.
Yes.
2019 school year wasn't around as much. But by that time I had like really stepped into the Brightfield church community, you know, and was getting discipled by my small group leader there, and was like talking about deeper stuff, you know what I mean? No longer surface level. We walked through some chapters of like systematic theology, you know.
Good old Wayne Rudolph.
Good old Wayne Room. But yeah, so that was like, that's fun. And so it's always been cool to see God prove himself faithful in having somebody with me in that, you know. Because like for a long time when I was a kid, I had a leader, and then like I had a little bit of time where I had to like seek out some sort of like mentor, you know. But I think there's also been times where I've been able to pour into people well, you know what I mean? Because I'm getting poured into well.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. There's more.
I think
about, like Barnabas or whatever.
Paul and Barnabas.
Paul and Barnabas.
Paul and Timothy.
Paul and Timothy. Whatever all those relationships are. I forget what it is. But
I think like it's important to state that if you are pouring into someone, like if you're discipling someone, if you're like considered like a mentor for somebody, like it is so vital and important that you yourself are getting fed.
Absolutely.
And I've been a part of ministries that don't view that as key, you know, where they're like, we're just going to put you here because we think you can handle it. But if you look at their life outside of the ministry, it's like they're not spending time with the Lord. They're not getting poured into themselves.
for sure.
And I feel like that's, I just thought of this. So I'm going to say it. But like, that's kind of like if you're driving and like, if you're not getting poured into, this is how it is. If you're driving and you leave like your gas cap off your engine or your off your thing,
The gas tank.
off the gas tank,
For sure.
like you're going to run out
Yeah.
quickly, I think. I don't know how cars work.
Yeah.
Like-
Might splash out.
Yeah, like it's going to splash out.
For
And
the sake of
it's
the
like,
For the sake of the analogy, it's definitely gonna
you're
splash.
not going to like fill up.
You're driving on an incline and it all just is pouring
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And you're not using your 4-wheel drive. So you're running out. But it's like, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you gotta have someone at high V that's like pumping your gas. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Get discipled by Hy-Vee workers.
All right.
I did this yesterday
Shout
at
out
work.
to
That's
Hy-Vee.
kind of why it's fresh to me.
Hy-Vee.
I drove from gas station to gas station in a brand new BMW.
Ooh,
Really
fun.
nice. But I left my gas thing open
Oh,
and I left the nozzle off.
ooh.
And I thought I was gonna run out of gas.
I
But
thought it was gonna splash out.
all that to say, like, it's important
It's super important.
that you're also being poured into.
Yeah.
Like gas into.
And I think that can be like in your solo time with Jesus. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
fine, right?
But if that's not existent,
Oh,
There's an
for
issue.
sure. For sure.
Yeah.
That's a total issue, you know. But it's also so helpful to be coming alongside other Christians, right? Because we're not meant to do this alone.
no man is an island.
No man is an island.
No man is an island. Sorry.
No, it's good.
It's written by my good friend Mike. Had coffee with him once. Mike Donovan.
Yes.
Coffee with him once.
Good
I'm
friend.
glad-
Good
So what does that make me?
Yeah, right.
Oh, you're like
We're brothers.
We're brothers. We're all brothers here.
Yeah, that's true.
Brothers in Christ.
I like it.
But no, like I think as like, and how has Brightfield how has that like shaped your view of
Yeah.
discipleship and mentorship?
Yeah, super small group oriented church.
Yeah.
Which I really love. Like we'll get there on a Sunday morning, and like I don't think Pastor Alonzo will like go through, and he would hate if I called him Pastor Alonzo. But I don't think he would like go through a whole sermon without saying like, hey, like this is only part of what we do. You know what I mean? We're really small group oriented. Everybody that wants to like call Brightfield their church home, right? We really encourage you to get into a small group because that's where community happens the most, you know? Like I don't think a Sunday passes with him saying something like that, right? So in that and in finding that community in church, right, played a huge role in like understanding what discipleship looks like for me, you know? Because it is, I mean, and bringing it back around, it is like kind of just doing life together, right? My small group leader, Ricky, will like we didn't have time. We were actually supposed to meet up yesterday, but I got home from work late. And so I was like texting him. I was like, I got to shower off and pick up snacks for small group. Like, I don't have a lot of time. And so like, I didn't check my phone. And then he just kind of like rolled up in my parking lot of my apartment, like as I was leaving. And he was like, hey man, what's up? And I was like, hey, I'm going to get food. Do you want to come with me? He's like, sure. So like, then we just got snacks for small group, same thing, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like that, just doing life together, you know, especially amidst the busyness of another semester, you know, and
Yeah.
online class and COVID season and whatever. So
I
And
think
I think there's a dichotomy though, like a balance to be found because you don't want to be the guy who has hung out with someone for 5 years and gone and spent all this time together and never pursued like depth. But I know that's not what you're saying.
Absolutely.
But we need to guard against it because I think because of our sinful nature, our default is to not pursue that
For
depth.
sure. Yeah.
We're just gonna take it easy. We're just gonna kind of coast. We're like, yeah, I'm doing discipleship and hanging out with them, and then like years pass and you realize that you haven't like taken any deeper steps with that person.
Absolutely.
So we have to find a sweet spot in the middle. Obviously, neither extreme is good. Like there is a part of it that is doing life together. It doesn't always have to be ultra deep conversation. You can go get food,
For sure.
and that's all you're doing. But then, of course, on the flip side, like you can't always just be like
Getting food.
you can't always be getting food, but you also can't every time they see you be like, what sins have you committed today? Tell me now.
It's
Like
true.
there is a sweet spot in the middle to be found, and I feel like we need to depend on the Holy Spirit so much for the wisdom to know how to walk that middle ground. Because I mean, there might be days that you have to pursue one over the other, you know, like pour into that relationship, and then versus ask a lot of it with hard stuff. And it's just we have such need for the wisdom of the Lord.
Yeah, because like we talk a lot. Me and Reese, we're pretty good friends, I would say. And
brothers.
we're brothers.
Brothers.
Hey, look, it's our neighbors.
Squirrel.
Oh yeah, man, there it is. And but like, there's plenty of times where Reese and I have had to have the hard conversation, and there's plenty of times where Reese and I will sit in a room and just laugh about stupid stuff.
It's true.
You know. And I think like that's important. And the same is for me and you. Like we've had some really real conversations off camera and on camera and on camera. And then we've also had like stupid nights of playing video games of just like, this is boring.
For sure. Yeah.
And I feel like the balance there, like you were saying, it's just so important. And like I think a lot of times I never want to like be like, Reese, I just want to continually come to you with like my sins, you know? You're like,
you'd get tired of it, and I'd get tired of it.
For sure.
And we would very quickly be like, dang, is all we ever do get super deep now? Like,
that's
we need
all we do.
We need some fun,
Right.
You know? Like, I mean, Jesus hung out with 12 dudes for 3 years, and
You think all they did was like, Jesus, Father, I have
No way.
As I've heard one pastor put it, there had to have been a few pull my finger jokes.
Oh yeah,
That had to be.
totally.
So I bet they had a lot of fun.
For sure.
Yeah, like I look at my relationship with even like Jason, like our head pastor, and there's plenty of like conversations where it's like, Jason, like I'm really struggling with this, or I have questions about this. But there's also the trips of like us going to Chicago together and going to a Sox game together. And it's like, when you have that relationship with another man in your life, like that's where like, Joshi said this on the episode a few weeks ago, where it's like, it opens the door for authenticity to pour in, you know, like where it's like, it's not just like the 2-hour meeting at Starbucks or the 2-hour podcast that you guys sit down and do together, but it's like the car rides and the like, here's what I do with my life, and here's how I do my life, and I'm going to invite you in.
Sure.
Like this past Sunday, Reese and I were getting ready to like have a welcome back party for one of our leaders, and we went and got sushi, and we ate sushi together, and it's like that was fun. Like
For sure.
I got bubble tea.
Yeah, he got bubble tea for the first time.
Where'd you guys go for sushi?
Fushiyami. Ami sushi is too expensive and not as good in my opinion.
Okay.
So
Good to know.
that's my hot take of the episode.
Hot take.
But I think like the relational aspect is so huge. It's a huge part of discipleship.
Yeah.
And if all you ever do is come and you sit down and you're like, yeah, man, it's been a really rough week. Like that's gonna really stagnate.
Cool.
We need to do a segment where John tries to say words.
Yeah, I think he said
A compilation.
Yeah.
And but like that's really gonna like make that relationship like only grow so much, you know.
Yeah.
And I think like that is important. It is so important. Like I can't stress enough how like being able to make jokes with the guys that I do ministry with has like that's a cool thing too. Okay, I'll say this and then we'll do whatever.
Okay.
But like I've been a part of like 4 or 5 worship teams in my memory.
Mhm.
But I have never been a part of a worship team like Bethany Road.
Mhm.
And I mean that with all seriousness. Like I love getting to like rehearse with these guys on Thursdays and sit in the green room with these guys on Sundays. And like, because it's like yes, we know what we're there to do. We're there to point people to Jesus. And we all love Jesus. We all are all about the Lord. But it's not just like, all right, we're going to show up and we're going to be super serious. And we have to get through these songs and then we're not going to talk to each other at all.
Right.
Like, I'll be texting with these guys throughout the week.
Yeah.
And we'll be sitting in the green room laughing together. And we'll be making jokes during rehearsal. And like, it's like, that's what like coming alongside one another. And I've never been a part of a worship team that's like that. Like, and it's a sad reality that a lot of my worship teams have just been like, let's run through these songs and then we'll all go do life, but we'll do it separately. Like we'll all go do our own thing. Where it's like with Bethany Road, and I'm sure there's other churches. I'm not making it sound like my church is like the church, but it's like when you have a team that's like that, I think it brings like, again, that word of like authenticity to how you lead your fellow believers, you know?
Definitely.
So I would say that's just so important.
Definitely.
So, I don't know like what else you guys want to talk about, but I think a really cool thing would be taking everything we've said into account.
Yeah.
How do we start this process? Like, if you are just at a full stop and you're not getting discipled and you're not discipling someone, if you're just, sitting still.
If you're like, man, I want that.
I want that, but I don't have it yet. How do we go about getting there? Because, all this stuff that we've said is really solid. It's super good, but it's like
we've been doing this
abstract. And and we've been doing it a while. We've been experiencing it. And I think it's like, we have to kind of put on the like lens of what if someone is new to it and they want to begin this process. I think it'd be cool to just like talk a couple minutes about
no, that's
like
huge.
what do you
I think
do
that's
to start?
Huge. It's huge. That was my Donald Trump impression.
I'll put that on the compilation.
I like it.
Huge.
So I guess that's a question I'm posing to you guys, and we can just kind of kick that around if you're cool with it.
Like a soccer ball on a Tuesday evening.
Tuesday evening, specifically?
How about a Thursday morning?
That's a good idea.
Like
Now? I don't know if I can.
I think finding a local church if you're not invested in a church, you know what I mean, discipleship probably won't happen super well.
Get her done, son.
that's right there. Local church investment is
Local church for sure.
humongous.
And one that will seek, if they're a church, I hope they're seeking out like to disciple people,
Yes.
If not,
If they're not, you don't want to be there.
maybe look at a different church.
Maybe you're not at a church.
So like finding that first, right? And Brightfield does small groups, right? If you're younger, a youth program, right, is a great place to start.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think getting your foot in the door, so to speak, and like, I don't know. Do you ask? That's a posed back question. Do you ask to be discipled? And how has that gone in you guys' lives?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it can be hard. It can feel weird.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you guys, but like if someone walked up to me and they were like, I want to live my life like you do. Can you mentor me?
For sure.
I mean, I would be like falling over myself to say yes.
Yeah.
It's one of the most honoring questions.
It's so honoring and humbling and like, I mean, if you just go up to an older guy and you're like, man, like I really respect the kind of man that you are. I want to like be the kind of man that you are. How did you get to where you are? Tell me about the way you live your daily life. Tell me about your relationship with Jesus. That guy's going to be like so honored by that request. He's not going to be like, oh, no, I have to meet this young person.
That reminds me, I have to text back a student. I totally forgot.
Yeah, good.
Thanks for reminding me.
That's a good reminder.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, I think asking also is good from like top down, like the mentor to the mentee.
Yeah.
If it's, you can put that in the compilation if you want. Trying to figure out words, but
InHaus words. Look back to the episode.
I think that is equally honoring.
Yeah.
I mean, think about if an older guy was like, hey,
You played basketball?
That sounds like.
wouldn't play. Like if an older guy was like, hey, you want to get together like once a week and just like talk about life and tell me about your life and model.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. That would be so cool. I would love to.
Did you ever do that with Gary? Did you ever specifically say, like, hey, let's get together? Or was it always...
He came after me.
He did?
Yeah, because I wasn't wise enough to come after that relationship.
He must have saw something in you then.
I don't know.
Gotta ask him, Gotta have him on the podcast, I guess.
But here's another
That's the only way we can ask people questions.
Here's another thought. I think it's really important to remember that, like, from a leadership perspective, your words have a lot of power.
Oh,
For sure.
say it again.
Your words have a lot of power.
Mm.
Because as an influencer,
Classic Baptist.
what's that?
The Baptists always sit and they're just like,
The spiritual yummies.
Yeah.
But seriously, as you, whether it's in that like official meeting time where you like meet once a week or whatever, or even if it's just in passing, little comments here and there on the side that you might not think a second thought about, they're going to mean a lot to those people.
Definitely.
And so that means two things. We have to guard our words really carefully. I mean, there's a proverb that says, like, Lord, put a guard over the words of my mouth, like, guard my tongue from slipping. And we have to be really careful, like the words that we say to the people that we're influencing, because they're watching and listening to how we talk and do life. And they're going to start to model after that. And so like a careless sentence, even like a little bit of ribbing, like a little insult. I mean, that, me to you. Or
I had to be careful the other night.
Sure, it can cut deep, like way deeper than you think.
Yeah.
And also on the flip side, like an encouraging word, a quick, insightful, like, hey, I see this in you, you're doing really good. That could skyrocket their whole week just to hear that from you.
Totally. And I think like that's something you just have to be so mindful of is what I'm saying building up and encouraging, or is it like putting a dent in what that student, and it could be a conversation between Reise and I that a student sees.
Sure.
Like even like, because Reise and I have this relationship where I can say like, oh, we can rip at each other and none of us are going to go home and cry. Reese cries himself to sleep every time we hang out. But like, even if we have that relationship, like that's not necessarily something that we should always be putting on display for the students to see, or for like someone that is like newer to the faith to see, right? Because then they're like, oh, I can.
That's how I act.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm going to tell that to my best friend at school, and then all of a sudden they're not friends anymore. So it's like it is super important to just kind of be aware of like who's in the room, kind of like feeling the crowd.
Absolutely.
Like I'm not gonna go make a joke at youth group that I necessarily like. Not that we make the most inappropriate jokes, but it's like you just got to be careful about what you're saying, and then like because that could destroy, or that could really like build up the student.
Yeah, I mean. Again, depend on the wisdom that comes from the Lord, the leading of the Holy Spirit in our sayings and doings, like there are times that jokes are awesome and laughing can nail a point home like humongously, and then sharing that fun together. But yeah, like maybe sometimes it's not the best time for that. How do we know? the Holy Spirit knows, and He'll lead us if we depend on
And I feel like you can also like, sometimes it takes making that mistake
Him.
to kind of to see, you know,
Dude.
I've been there.
For sure.
This is like kind of on topic, but not at the same time. On Good Friday one time, I was really just dumb and not mindful.
Mhm.
And I walked into the green room, and like at our church on Good Friday, we all wear black.
Mhm.
And I walked.
Oh no.
Oh, I'm so mad at myself. But it's kind of funny, but it's not at the same time. I walk into the green room. Or no, we were all in the old youth land.
Oh yeah.
And go, man, who died? And like,
Jesus. For your sins.
and the look that I got from everybody in the room was like, what are you doing?
Yes.
Like,
For sure.
but like, see,
Definitely.
that's just like an example of like,
Definitely.
don't, that's not the time or place, John. Read the room. Like,
Right.
you know? And the same could be said for like the conversations that we have. Like, I'm not going to make that joke.
For sure.
You know? So,
Wise. Be wise.
You guys?
but like, and I think for people who want to get invested in this, like, I think I have an app for, I don't even want to say like, I don't want to brag on myself, but it's like, I've just been very intentional about like, I want to meet with you
Mhm.
and I want to have a conversation with you because I look up to you and I think that like you could pour into my life.
For sure.
And not everybody is that way. Not everybody's going to invite potential criticism into their life,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
A lot of people just want to be surrounded by yes men.
Mm.
They just want their ego to be tickled. They want everyone to just build them up with everything they say. And what I've seen from you is that you open yourself up to be like, hey, correct me if I need it.
Tell me I'm
Rebuke me if I
wrong.
need
Tell me I'm a sinner.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like a lot of Christian relationships, that's missing.
Mm.
Just the simple fact that you're a sinner,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that's like not the way that it should be.
Call to repentance.
Yes, like tell me when I'm messing up, you know? And is it going to be comfortable?
No, for sure.
Probably not. But like, is it in the long haul, like gonna really change some things?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I feel like when you say get involved in a church,
Mhm.
do it, you know?
Mhm.
Like,
Do it.
church is everything.
Do it.
Like, if you're just like,
Church is the best.
like Bible studies are cool,
Mhm.
other ministries are cool,
Mhm.
but they're not church.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you make those things church, like you're missing out on all that the Lord has.
Mhm.
Can the Lord use those things?
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Yeah.
But like that, there's so much more, you know?
Definitely.
Like I'm involved in like campus ministry and I'm involved in like youth group, right? But if I left those things, like if I was just like, I'm only gonna come to youth group on Sunday nights, or I'm only gonna go to my campus ministry,
Mhm.
but I'm not gonna like do anything else. Like, I'm not gonna go to church on Sunday. Like my relationship with the Lord is gonna suffer. My relationship with others is gonna suffer,
Definitely.
and like I'm not gonna feel. I feel like I wouldn't be walking to my full potential that the Lord had for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And so it's like find that thing, find that church wherever you are, whether you're listening to this in DeKalb or like Alaska. Like
Definitely Alaska.
get to church, wherever you are, get to church.
Amen.
You know,
Boom.
That's
because church is like everything else will spring from church.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll say is church is not the building.
Amen.
We are the church, right? Like we as the people of, like church doesn't have to be, like this season has been a really good proof of that. Like church doesn't have to be like, get to this building and then you've done it. Check it off your list.
I mean, sure, yeah, I think of like a persecuted church around the world.
Yeah.
They like
Yeah.
rotate. They like rotate houses
Yeah.
because if the same group of people is seen going into a basement multiple times, the people who are out to kill them are going to be like, there's a church meeting there.
Yeah.
Like, and so they'll skip around different places for meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, so that just confirms everything you just said. That's a church, and yet they're shifting buildings every day.
And I mean, look at what COVID has done to us, right? Like for the past 5 months until just very recently, I had church on this couch every Sunday morning
On that TV.
on that TV. And like there's still people doing that. There's still people who are not coming to the physical building and they're having church on their couch. And the Lord is still using that,
Amen.
you know?
For sure.
And it's like, I thank God for the technology that we have now, that we can have church streamed to your homes, right? Like there's still bigger churches that aren't meeting, like Passion City, like in Atlanta, Louis Giglio. I watch their church too. They're like my second church or whatever. Just because it's like, and his thing is like, wherever you are, whether you're in your car or you're like at your friend's house or you're in a backyard, like get to church today,
Amen.
you know?
That's real.
Because we are the church. The people of the Lord, like the saints, are the church. It's not a building. Like if Bethany Road burned down tomorrow, we'd still meet on Sunday somewhere.
We'd still
I'm
be
sure.
church.
I'm sure of
Yeah,
it.
true.
We'd still be the church. You know?
Amen.
And that's like ultimate discipleship right there.
For sure.
Triple
Thanks.
boom.
Triple boom. Have you ever heard of
Shout out to Carl and crew.
Carl and crew? No.
Moody Radio, weekday mornings, 5 to 9.
Reese has had
We'll have
an
him on.
appearance.
We'll have him on.
That would be amazing.
Reese would want to be here for that, for sure. Have you've met them? You did like an interview thing with
You
them.
got some connections?
Yeah, you can find that video online.
Yeah, we'll go look it up. We'll get it to him.
Can you call him for me? And
I
say,
don't know his number, I'm sorry.
We'll call him next time.
can you be like,
You can call the morning show though.
InHaus podcast?
They ask for calls all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
That's how Reese got
This is
invited.
That's how I got invited to make that little video because
Sweet.
I called in and they were like, cool story, you want to come in and film a short video? And I was like,
Yeah.
heck yeah. Any chance to visit Moody is a good chance for me.
Yeah,
Hey, good combos.
really
For
good
sure.
conversation.
Thanks for
What are we at? What time?
over though.
Over an hour.
Good, that was my goal.
Reese was like, we're gonna. Oh, dude.
Reese is like, I'm gonna keep asking
Oh,
questions.
that's
So,
Dude.
All
It's-
All
You
good.
good?
Yeah, we good.
All right, we good.
You good?
I'm good.
You good?
I'm good.
I'm good.
If we quit in under an hour, I would just
You would have
been
just kept
disappointed.
You would have just sat here.
I would've sat here and kept talking.
Keep filming. All
All
right.
right. Well,
So good.
Reese, where can they find you if they
Yeah.
wanted to look you up and
Thanks.
maybe
first
reach
off-
out to you more?
First off, thanks for serving me, Bethany. That was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me serve under you each week.
Dude. Yeah.
Serve together, even. I would say we serve together.
Second off, where can people find me?
Well, yeah, I knew that you were going to ask that question.
Yeah.
And
Oh boy.
I'm a little bit,
You can say nowhere.
I'm not like that ashamed to say that if you find me on social media, you'll probably never see very much of anything.
That's okay.
That's
but,
okay.
but can I get, at risk of sounding a little overly spiritual, can I say this?
Sure.
Whatever energy you were going to expound finding me on social media,
Uh-huh.
go read your Bible
Amen.
with
Hey.
because
Don't
you're gonna
find
get
Reese, find Jesus.
you're gonna get a lot more out of God's word than you're gonna get out of any of my social media
Amen.
pages.
For sure.
I'll tell you that much.
For sure.
But I will say, Reese has a mobile detail company
That's true.
that is
My detail cards.
is real and it's awesome,
Do you
and
wanna
he
go
has
deep?
Sure.
Okay.
he has photo evidence of it.
That's true.
360 mobile detail. So if you want your car looking clean,
Thanks for the shout out.
We'll
My
talk
man.
after. Yeah, we'll talk. Cool.
you want to do my G6? Not that it's really worth it.
It's not worth it. Forget it.
Yeah, don't even do it. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for continuing to support the show, and
We'll see you next time.
I'll see you next time.